Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello and welcome to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. This is Gary Wilson, your host. Welcome back. Thank you very much for participating. And by the way, would like to ask you a favor. If you haven't yet done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. It's on any number of 30 channels, including the biggies, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and we love reviews. So give us a review once you watch or listen to this podcast. A couple more things here. A trend has developed in the last several months, and the trend is this: we're attracting more real estate agents. So if you're an agent, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. I have a license too. I've had one for 19 years, a little more than half of my investing years. And we train agents how to work with investors. We don't just train them. We have a team, a national team called Global Investor Agent Team. And you can learn more about it if you'd like. And if you're not an agent, you're strictly an investor, you definitely want to get one of these guys on your team because we train them. They're certified. They have the tools. They know how to identify, analyze, and negotiate properties all over the country. We're in 24 states. So this is a serious thing here. Numbers are great. Your team members are the most important people in your investing career. So go to the website, realestatewithgarywilson.com. Click on members area. If you're already a member, you know what to do. If you're not, go to the right where it says, get more information, something like that. Go in and you get to go in free for 30 days. Get books for free. Get hundreds of recordings for free on everything you can imagine on real estate. And more importantly, go to the community site and select yourself an investor agent, okay? And I know them personally because I trained them. So in any case, without further ado, speaking of team members, we got a great guest today, John Ostenson, who is also in Atlanta, where I am today doing this podcast. So John, welcome aboard.
Gary, thanks for having me. Love the show. Looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking your valuable time to do this. And if you could, I've learned a little bit about you, but for those who haven't, would you mind paint us a portrait of John Ostenson, and then we'll jump into some meat and potatoes and case studies. Does that sound fair?
Absolutely. Sounds fair. No, appreciate it again. And I'm married, 3 young kids. We live here in Buckhead. It's a part of Atlanta. We're Atlanta natives for the most part. And looking back, the best summary, I was a corporate refugee, had spent many years in the corporate world like many of your listeners, and had a great run and probably could have done it forever. But about 5 years ago, I had that itch to do something a little more entrepreneurial. And, I had the investment properties on the side, like many of your listeners, but, I want to do something more with my day-to-day activities of where, it was a smaller private company, not the large public company world. And I had the opportunity to step in with Shelf Genie franchise system and serve as their president, leading all the marketing teams, call center technology, supporting all of our franchise owners around the country. So Shelf Genie is custom pull-out shelving for your kitchens and pantries, home services category there. And long story short, ended up partnering with the founder of Shelf Genie. The two of us spun off, brought in a third partner, and we're now franchise owners ourselves of a pool cleaning business, a carpet cleaning business, and a home cleaning business, all within the franchise realm. And fortunately, we've got good people that run those for us. So I spend about 10% of my time there. I'm able to spend about 90% of my time on the consulting side, which I absolutely love. So I get the opportunity to take those that are interested in business ownership through a pretty streamlined process of getting to know them and then helping them match up to the right opportunities in the market, in their local market, that can complement what they're currently doing or become a full-time opportunity as well. I call this non-food franchising because there's this world of opportunities out there that are oftentimes not on people's radars. And when they think franchising, they think food. Well, my background is not food. I focus in all the other sectors outside of food and lodging, which incorporates, just literally hundreds of businesses across the country. So have a lot of fun taking people through the process, educating them, and helping them play matchmaker.
Yeah, well, it's such an awesome subject, and I'll for everybody listening, I will tell you firsthand. When I first got into the real estate business, I wasn't really aware of franchising. I understood, there was a million McDonald's everywhere and things like that, but almost every business, I'm not going to say all, but almost every all can potentially be franchised. And for example, the real estate agency business, the largest companies are all franchise models, right? Remax, Century 21, Coldwell Banker, Berkshire Hathaway, Keller Williams, they're all franchise businesses. And I know personally people who own real estate franchises who don't even have a real estate license. Okay, you can be an owner. You don't have to have a license to be an owner. So in any case, I'm a big fan of it. And so John, if you wouldn't mind, who buys franchises and why? I mean, I know I came from the corporate world myself, banking. And, I was always looking for a great way to invest. And I studied, and that's how I got into real estate. But if you could kind of bridge that gap, because I'm sure people have got their radars are up now. How does this apply to them? And I tell you, it will definitely apply to you. So in any case, sorry to ramble. If you wouldn't mind kind of ties together there, who's buying the franchises and why are they buying them?
Yeah, absolutely. And year to date, franchising is hot. It is, to put it bluntly, we're expecting deal flow to be over 40% of pre-pandemic levels. Year to date, we're tracking ahead of that. There's really an unprecedented level of interest that I'm personally seeing in franchising out there. I think it's coming out of COVID. A lot of people are questioning the path they've been on, thinking maybe now's the time to scratch that entrepreneurial itch, or maybe it's the record levels of cash sitting on the sidelines. And, stock market's all-time high, interest rates are extremely low. There's certainly real estate deals to be had, but they're fewer and further between in some cases, in some markets. And so they're saying, well, it's a terrible problem. Where do I put this excess cash? And they're looking for opportunities to diversify that portfolio. So, I see those that, want to go full-time, oftentimes in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even in some cases, their 20s that say, hey, I'm ready to leave the corporate world. I'm ready to leave the grind. I want to build my own empire, not someone else's. And then we also have those that what we call semi-absentee, where maybe they're able to put in 10 to 15 hours a week. And maybe they started on the side with the goal of it eventually becoming a full-time thing. I do a lot of placements with real estate investors. I'd say more than half of my clients are real estate investors. And, there's really two paths to go down there. You can, look at an opportunity that could be a true real estate play, or it could be a services business, which have been very, very popular, essential services, COVID resistant, Amazon resistant, that can complement your real estate investing. So very pertinent kind of consideration here. And I will say franchising is not for everybody. There are some that say, hey, I'd rather do it myself. I want to put my thumbprints all over it. But then you have many that say, hey, I like the idea of a proven model. So, I'd say it's all the above. It's a wide range and it's a lot of fun time to be in franchising, just a lot of interest right now.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this will help a lot of investors see the logic here. So if you've invested in real estate, let's say you bought a 5-unit building, okay, $200,000. And you put down 20%, which is $40,000, and you finance the rest. And then you have basically instant equity, some equity, and you have now a cash flow stream. Okay, so if you do the evaluation on that, think of it as a franchise. Think of every property you own as like it's its own franchise, right? And then you go over to the more traditional franchises like pest control businesses, carpet cleaning businesses are all franchise models. And maybe to have one cost you $40,000, and then you've got to have some other upfront costs, what we call sunk costs. Maybe that's another 160. Well, there's 200 right there, and that develops a cash flow stream. So what you can do is compare the two side by side, a carpet cleaning franchise with a fiveplex. Okay, the one thing that's a variable, because you really don't know until you do it, is how much time you'll have involved. You've got to manage both. You got to manage either one. But for those of you thinking, okay, what's the application here? That's the application. I don't rely solely on real estate. Okay, I have other things going on too. Real estate is sort of the foundation for me that allows me to launch other activities. And the reason I like that as a foundation is it's backed by brick and mortar, income producing, physical, tangible assets. Okay, that's why I make that the platform. So in any case, so how, if you wouldn't mind, John, how can franchises be run, passively or even semi-passively? So for people thinking, okay, how much time do I have? What could that look like for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And, not all franchises, I'll say, would be open to semi-absentee, but I would say the vast majority of ones that we work with do have that semi-absentee model. There's no true absentee. You still have to put in some time, especially up front. What I tell clients is, typically it's finding that right GM. It comes down to having the right people. I mean, with franchising, you've got the franchisor on the sidelines who's cheering you on, supporting you, very much aligned to interest. You've got franchisees in other markets where you're able to trade best practices, learn from each other's, testing of marketing vehicles, for instance. In some cases it is that name recognition. And then you've got the proven playbook. So you're not starting from scratch. I mean, you're not, as I like to say, you're not starting on first base, you're starting on third base. It's people have been there, done it, and you're able to learn. So really a lot of benefits of franchising. They can help support that semi-absentee approach to the business. But I always tell clients, if you think it's going to take 10 hours, it's probably going to take 15. If you think 15, it'll probably take 20, especially in the early going. I mean, I don't want to ever blindside anybody with thinking it's easy, but it's certainly one of those things. I think of a client of mine in South Carolina. He's a good example of a few clients I have out there where he was the largest franchisee in 2 Men and a Truck moving service, operated about 9 or 10 markets, young guy, 40 years old. And built up this team. And he said, hey, there's more opportunity out there. I'd like to promote people within, give them additional responsibilities. And so he and I did a couple of deals last year where we placed him into some services businesses, and he's able to promote someone, give them a little equity, go run the business for him. So I think over time, there's a snowball effect where you can create an organization, build a small empire, or you can just say, hey, I'd like to have a little one territory deal that really complements my rental homes that are all in the same geographic area.
Yeah. Well, you're mentioning some of my favorite places, Georgia and South Carolina, and we just stayed at a place called Merrimack's last night. If you ever go to Atlanta, go to Merrimack's. I tell you, that's one of the best places to eat on the planet. Now, remember, this is not the kind of place if you're on a diet, give it up for 2 hours, because it is good old-fashioned Southern cooking, believe me. So, any case, so back to what we were talking about now. I know from experience, a lot of people who have an idea for a business, a model of a service or product, they intuitively or instinctively think, I've got to build my own business. And they will. They go out and just kind of one day at a time build this thing. And next thing you know, 3 years later, they've actually got a small startup company. But what are the pros and cons of franchising versus doing it the old school of hard knocks way, which is starting a company from scratch?
Yeah, again, you get a little bit of a running start, and it's proven. It's some of those things I just hit on previously. I'd also say an often overlooked component is not just the cash flow along the way, but just like with real estate, you're building an asset that, as long as you nurture it and favorable business terms out there, it should grow in value over time, and you can work towards that exit down the road. A really interesting study was done recently by the Rinker School of Business. They looked at 2,000 businesses over 10 years in both franchised and non-franchise relations, across a number of different sectors, apples to apples. What they found was that upon an exit, a franchise business typically trades at 1.5 times multiple of the non-franchised. And so there's a perceived value out there, which is a very tangible value, in my opinion, of what the franchise brings to the table. And so you do have that strong exit value, again, assuming that you've run the business halfway well along the way.
And you've got proven systems and models and checklists and all those things, but they're just invaluable. I mean, in my background, my first job was with at Langley Air Force Base, working at NASA on the space shuttle program, and we just had checklists for everything. There was very little room for margin of error. I mean, make a mistake there, it's catastrophic. Obviously, we've had some examples of space shuttles, crashing and things, but same thing applies to business. The more scripted you have your processes, your procedures, your model, and you study and understand it, and the good franchisors have great support models too, teaching, training, coaching. It makes it so much easier to succeed. The success rate is so much higher. Guys, when you start something on your own and you don't have any of that, it's like walking through the forest with a blindfold on. You're going to bump into a lot of trees and it's going to be painful, but franchise model, you'll learn how to actually start and run a business from scratch, except you're doing it inside the franchise model. So in any case, now when it comes to franchise models, Are there any sectors in particular, John, that you're seeing right now maybe better than others, or kind of what's the trend or trends that you're seeing as far as which sectors are good to be involved in?
Yeah, I like to think about franchise businesses really in 4 quadrants. You've got your simple retail, your complex retail, your B2C services, and your B2B services. And I won't drill down too much on those, but I'll say that the sectors that I've really seen resonating, especially with real estate backgrounds, the property services and home services. I mean, again, people see that as somewhat tech resistant, but in a lot of cases, you're bringing technology to a very blue collar fragmented industry. So, I'm doing a lot of deals in areas such as gutters or insulation or dumpsters. I mean, I like to say the non-sexy is kind of the new sexy. People in this age are really attracted to less trendy, the types of businesses. I mean, I'm working on a 10-pack oil change for a client right now, where in that case, they are taking unused parking spaces in a landlord shopping center, typically about eight parking spaces. And they've got an investor group that actually backs prefabricated buildings. And so a franchisee is leasing a prefabricated building plus the parking spaces, and they typically need only 2 employees to run this oil change. And it's got some uniques as to why it's better from a customer standpoint. I won't get into all this now, but people like things that are a little bit different, but they're very understandable, and they're somewhat de-risked going in. Again, I mean, it's the water mitigation, mold remediation type businesses, as well as, health and wellness. I mean, we've got an aging population. I just did a deal for the entire state of New Jersey in which there's an IV drip that, fights free radicals in the body and boosts your immunity, reduces heavy metals. That's one's going to require a little more education from a customer standpoint, but it's an example of where we see things moving really. And that's not just across seniors, that's across the full population. Children, some education related franchises are really doing well right now. So it is a broad spectrum. Some people say, hey, I've got a B2B sales background. I'd really like to do payroll services or bookkeeping. I mean, there's some areas there. Even business coaching is one where we're doing about a deal a week with clients right now on business coaching. They give you that framework. It's a low buy-in cost. And, for 10 hours a week, you are trading time for money in that case, but it is very lucrative.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that was a sector. That's pretty amazing. So, okay, now here's what some people I'm sure are thinking right now, because I know I sure am. I've looked at this before, mainly in the real estate sector. So what costs can you expect, and what kind of revenue and profit potential can you expect? And maybe it's different for the different sectors, but what kind of things are you seeing in your experience as far as cost, revenue, and profit potential with franchising?
Yeah. So, first I'll start on the cost side. So every franchisor has what's called an FDD, a franchise disclosure document. It's got 23 sections of it. We call them items. They're regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, so the numbers in there have to be accurate. And there's 2 components within that we pay a lot of attention to. First is the item 7, where it's your all-in investment range as represented by the franchisor, and then your item 19, which is the representation of what you can make within the franchise, and it could be an average across all franchisees. They may show it by quartiles, but you're able to go in somewhat eyes wide open into what those numbers should look like. You're also able to talk to other franchisees in the process, and they can open up their books and share, anything they're willing to. And that's what we call validation. So the goal is for you to go in eyes wide open before you make that decision to buy in. So getting back to the cost side with it, which is within that item 7, the franchise fee is typically right at $49,000. That just seems to be the magic number, give or take $5,000 for one location. If you do a second location, it's typically another $40,000. Third one might be $30,000. So you see a lot of people buying multiples or multi-packs, as we call them. And then, like you said earlier, there's some upfront cost. If it's a real brick and mortar type play, then you do have that build out cost. If it's a services business and you don't have brick and mortar and you're able to operate remotely, it could be a vehicle cost, or it could be some initial marketing. And most franchisors typically include 3 to 6 months of working capital as well in that estimate. So I'd say in most cases, most of the deals I'm doing right now, I'm somewhere between 150 and 250 all in. Yeah. But there are plenty of opportunities, especially in services, where you can get in for as low as 90,000 to 120, I would say, if you're doing a single territory arrangement. So, obviously if you're doing fitness or, some heavy automotive, then you might be closer to that $400,000, $500,000 mark. But, and then Also on the funding side behind that, while some people pay cash or friends and family, quite a few utilize SBA loans, both the 7A loans as well as the express loans. And we've got great partners that take clients through that process. And then there's what's called a ROBS program, which is using your retirement money without having to pay an early tax withdrawal fee on it. Yeah, there's a way around it. Set up as a C Corp, and there's some uniques to it. And then there's also one that I'm really excited about for those that have at least $150,000 in non-retirement accounts. You're able to borrow against that. It's what we call a portfolio loan. And it acts as a line of credit. So it's not just one lump sum, but you're able to draw it down over time as needed. And with LIBOR where it is right now, I mean, you're seeing 2 to 4% interest rates on it. So free money, in most people's eyes. And so those are some of the ways to fund. Now, on the item 19 side, which is your financial representation of what you can make within the franchise, I'd say let's take that example of someone $110,000 in on the franchise. Obviously, first year you're ramping up, second year becomes more mature. But let's just take that second year, third year estimate. A lot of these businesses are kicking off, call it 450, 500,000 in top line revenue, oftentimes at an EBITDA of 15 to 30%. So let's just say 20%. So in that case, 500,000 in revenue, 20%, 100,000 to the bottom line. That's a pretty good ROI. Knowing that you'll also be able to sell that business down the road, typically for more than what you pay for it. So nothing is ever easy, but the math is there for those that embrace it. Yeah.
Well, I'm just glad to hear that people can finance. I didn't realize you could. I was aware that we could borrow. You can buy real estate inside of a self-directed IRA, and if you have a 401k, you can borrow against a 401k. But to start a franchise, I wasn't aware. That's pretty good news for a lot of people, I think. And I know another source could potentially be, used to be only for affluent people that did this, but really anybody can do it, is if you have a whole life insurance policy that has cash value, you can borrow against the cash value. And you're actually borrowing against yourself. So you're your own bank. In fact, I know investors who purposely will use trusts and whole life insurance policies combined to get out of the conventional commercial borrowing business. And also there's some great tax benefits to it too. So there's seems to me like there's a lot more ability now than there was when I was in my 20s and 30s when I first got started. But speaking of timing, I know we got one or two more questions I want to ask you, but economic, none of us are wizards. I believe me, I wish we could have a crystal ball that says, here's when it's going to turn. But if we had that, we'd all be gajillionaires. We'd all be flying our rockets to outer space like Bezos and those other guys, but that's not practical. So understanding fundamentals of economics, supply and demand and inflation, you see all these things happening. It's like, well, the writing's kind of on the wall. And yet the pundits on television, they're telling us everything's okay. Well, they did the same thing last time around too, because they're basically broadcasting what they're being told to broadcast. I'm not knocking that. Please forgive me. I'm not knocking the news industry. It's just unfortunately, people really need to do their own research. So what I'm getting to here is this. Is there a time that's better than others? I'm not saying market timing, but when you look at an economy, and we see that we're probably at or near the top of this market. And for everybody listening, I just want you to relax. Yes, I've never seen a market go up and up and up that never eventually goes down. But I've also never seen a down market that didn't eventually go back up. It's just part of the natural cycle of business. It's going to happen. The sooner you recognize that, you learn to study it and understand it, you can relax and then make strategic moves accordingly. So within the world of franchising, John, any suggestions there, or anything based on your experience or from the learning you've done in franchising as far as when would be a good time to buy and or sell, Yeah.
Well, first off, I would knock the news agencies myself. I don't believe them. But no, I'm very attuned and do listen to a lot of different perspectives on inflation. I believe without a doubt we've got inflation. It's not transitory. So, depending on economic conditions, it really comes down to that fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Some people say, hey, is it risky to start a business? Well, I would counter by saying it's risky to work for someone else and you don't have any control. So I look at our businesses right now, like our pool cleaning, home cleaning, carpet cleaning. In our cases, we've raised prices. And you know what? We've told customers, and the customers have embraced it largely. They understand that we're paying to be able to have good people. It's the nature of the beast in the industry. We're having to pay our people more. As a business owner, you're always playing whack-a-mole. Right now, I'd say customer demand is through the roof. We've got more business than we can handle. On the flip side, it's tough from a staffing standpoint. We're having to give special incentives and bonuses to get people to show up for work. So right now, the mole is the labor side, which has obviously caught a lot of headlines. We've seen it firsthand. A lot of my clients are saying, hey, how can I generate a great ROI with as few employees as possible? So that's a very common conversation. But, of those that I really respect the opinion of, over and over, they're saying now is a great time to start a business. It's a time like this where, you do have excess capital. We're pummeling just tons of money into the economy. We probably share similar views on how that works, but the bottom line is, there is a lot of demand out there, and we see that going forward. And, I think it's finding those sectors that you have some level of interest in. 80% of my clients end up buying into something that they never had on their radar. So that's the fun part. But having, something that jives with that day-to-day that you'd be proud to represent, and then delivering a great service. And in a lot of cases, it's bringing a white-collar approach to a fragmented blue-collar industry. That's where we see success.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that too. And you're so right. I when I look back at things, when an economy does turn, it's not that all the wealth in the world depletes or goes away. It just simply changes hands. That was one of the biggest revelations I found. Same thing with real estate. It's not like we knock down all the buildings that are all of a sudden in bankruptcy. No, they unfortunately are taken back and by the banks, and then they're resold. So it just shifts from one pocket to another. And when you understand business and money, you can see the opportunities when they're there, and they're there in up markets and down markets. There might be slightly different strategies as far as how you structure the deal and finance and so forth. But the reality is people will always need gasoline. So they're going to have to go to a gas station, which is a franchise. They're always going to need groceries, right? They're always going to need medical attention. And ironically, it doesn't matter how bad an economy gets, people still want entertainment. They'll go to the movies, they'll go out to dinner. Those things actually don't stop, So if you think about, what really matters to people, maybe focus on those things. So one more thing, I know we're going to get close on time here, but I'm really curious, as far as geography goes, we're watching now massive migrations of people and money, just even more so in the last year, of course, because of the virus, and people are leaving California and New York in droves. It's just astounding. And they're going to places like Tennessee, of course, Georgia and Florida. So there's a great website for everybody listening. There's a great website called How Money Walks, and it uses IRS tax filings. It's not necessarily the migration of people, it's the migration of money. For example, last year, nearly $40 billion went from New York to Florida, just one state, right? And I don't keep track of all the others, but so you can see where money's going to, right? So having said that, are there any models inside the franchise world, John, where people can kind of see, hey, you know what? Dallas, Texas seems like it's going to keep growing for the next 20 years. Are there things like that we have available to us in the franchising business to know where we should be looking to franchise?
Yeah, I'd say directionally. And, I work across all of North America. I've got clients in just about every truly populated state. And, we see this firsthand. And so, I work with about 4,000 there are 4,000 franchise brands out there. We've vetted those down to around 300 that we work with, and I have the opportunity to take clients through the process entirely free to my clients. I get paid by the franchisor on the back end. None of that's passed on to them. The franchise fee is the franchise fee. It's just a sales and marketing expense for them. But no, I love exposing my clients to different opportunities. We talk about those macro things, as you were saying, of what's going on in that area. Do you have young families moving in? Is it more of a senior area? Less changing of hands within real estate? Is there more discretionary income? All these franchisors have software that shows, we could draw on the map, just like in real estate, here's what the demographics are. Here's the household incomes above a certain level, and we're able to make adjustments as we define our territories. But no, we track by state, the franchise placements that are happening. And it is without a doubt. I mean, Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, North Carolina has been large for a very long time. There's a lot of interest in franchising there. So the Southeast, I'd say in Arizona, I mean, it's, I've got clients out in Montana right now and Colorado, it's those areas that you keep hearing about that are definitely doing more placements, which is trending with the overall narrative and what we see happening.
Yeah. I tell you what, what's amazing, John, is today, and it sounds obvious, but more so than ever before, the volume and the availability of information and data is just, it has such a profound impact on decisions. And it's so much easier. When I was first starting out, like I mentioned earlier on before we started, I literally had to go to the corporate library where I worked on my lunch break and study manuals and periodicals and publications, from all the big the information purveyors. And that's how I learned everything. But nowadays, you just go on and you hit Google and then fill in the blank. You can almost find anything you want. But kind of the big picture here is this. Everybody's now listening or thinking, okay, this is something I should look into. I should probably call John too, by the way. But maybe your three big tips are how can an individual, just a regular person, a dentist, a teacher, a pilot, an engineer, how can they make the right decision in which franchise to get,
Yeah. Well, I'd say begin, giving thought to your local area. Be observant. What do you need? What do you have too much of? Listen to the conversations with your spouse and neighbors, and what are they saying about the local market and where you see things moving. And, that's always really good information to me. But like I said, if you go out there and start Googling franchising, you'll be overwhelmed. 4,000 franchise brands. Where do you start? Well, one may show 2 locations, but I know on the back end, they've got 50 more they're opening up in the next 6 months, and there's a really good story behind them. And so it's understanding under the covers, behind the scenes. Like I said, absolutely no cost at all to my clients. And it's something I'm just passionate about. I love getting on the phone, understanding their situation, taking them through a process where ultimately we introduce them to 5 to 6 opportunities in their area that kind of hit all their criteria. And then we work with them to narrow that down to 2 to 3 to actually engage with and have a conversation with the franchisor. So we try and make it streamlined and easy, because last thing I want is people, in this case, doing too much Googling, because you could go down a rabbit trail and, you may want to get into a mosquito business. Well, there's probably 5 or 6 brands out there, but I could tell you what's going on with each of those and why I would strongly recommend 1 or 2 of them.
Right.
Just as an example, I actually did a couple of mosquito deals with real estate investors this past spring. So, but no, so anyway, hopefully that answers the question. I want people to be able to, be cognizant of their time and be able to focus it in the right ways to ultimately, through the process, you're able to talk to other franchisees and make that right decision. Yeah.
So sounds like it's the classic formula for success. The right education plus the right information plus the right action equals the right results. And you always start with learning, and then you know where to get the information and how to use it, and then the action steps come much more easily. So what I'm sure people are interested to find out, if you have something that how can people reach out to you? How can they learn more about you and how you can serve them in this journey on franchising, becoming a franchisee? Website, email, chapter in a book, anything like that you have. Don't be shy. Absolutely share it, because people need the education, the information,
Yeah, no, would love to connect it with any of your listeners, and hop on a quick intro call. Let's discuss your situation, whether franchising could be right for you, and then if so, we can take next steps. You can reach me via email at John, no H, that's JON at FranBridgeConsulting.com. Come to our website, FranBridgeConsulting.com, join our newsletter, connect with me on LinkedIn. But I love having these conversations. I love being able to help just hundreds and hundreds of people find the right opportunity for them. So would love to connect. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, that's John at FranBridgeConsulting.com.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And so everybody, again, just one more time, FranBridgeConsulting.com, FARN And John, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking your precious, valuable time to do this. And it's so ironic that I'm actually here in Atlanta. If I'd have known that, we could have probably arranged to do a side-by-side interview, and maybe we'll do that sometime. We'll go to Merrimack's and enjoy a good old-fashioned Southern meal together.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, and then and for everybody listening, gratitude for listening and paying attention and partnering with us. I mean, the numbers are growing. We've got a great network. We've got over 3,000 investors now inside of our own proprietary network called GIG, Global Investor Group. They got there through the website. So again, go to the website, realestateWithGaryWilson.com. Click on members area, go into the members area for free. That's on the right-hand side. On the left, if you're already a member, you get it free for 30 days. I mean, you treat it like it's Christmas morning, and you get to open up all the presents you want for free for 30 days. I'm not kidding. And more importantly, go to the community site and get yourself a certified investor agent. And while you're out there on the internet, look up John, FranBridgeConsulting.com. And John, thanks again for doing this. Thank everybody for listening. God bless you and your families. And we'll see you on the next podcast. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.